MagMax, according to its arcade flyer, was the world's first 16-bit arcade game. Released and developed by Nihon Busan in 1985, this endless scrolling shooter does feature some pretty nifty scrolling for its time. I can imagine seeing this back in the day probably would have been like seeing something from the future. In the game, you control a hover ship which you can attempt to construct into a robot while playing. There's a head and a pair of legs to collect, as well as a laser weapon that looks more like an orange mechanical hard-on when your robot is fully constructed. As well as provide extra powered-ups, these add-ons also enable your ship to take more damage before being completely destroyed. The three-headed mechanical dragon that pops up as a boss character throughout the game is known as Babylon, and strongly resembles Mecha King Ghidorah from the Godzilla franchise. It's no surprise that the line-scrolling floor is absent from the Famicom port, but what does surprise is just how close to the arcade game it looks. Some may even say it looks better in some aspects. The sound is equally as impressive. But how does it play? Again, just as good as the arcade game. In fact, maybe even better, as I found it easier to judge projectiles on the overhead stages in this port. While the Commodore 64 port is smooth scrolling, it doesn't actually resemble the arcade game that well. Everything looks different. I mean, it's MagMax, but it's not MagMax. The game could have been called something else and gotten away with it. I also find the game very unfair. You can die many a time due to poor collision detection. You can also die from randomly appearing projectiles or projectiles that dart across the screen at ridiculous speeds. Sadly, I can't say I like this port much. ZX Spectrum port starts off just like the arcade, as your craft rises to the playing field on the elevator. From there it continues to be like the arcade game in terms of level style and gameplay. Unfortunately, as you probably expected, the enemy projectiles can be incredibly difficult to see at times, resulting in mysterious death. It's a big problem, however, if you can somehow overlook this issue, you'll find a pretty solid arcade port. I'm sorry Amstrad fans, but this is just shit. It's clearly based upon the Commodore 64 port, and that's a problem. The stage design is awful. The enemies you can't kill because they're hiding behind obstructions, yet their bullets have no problem reaching you. The collision hitbox is way too big and the controls are floaty. Yep, this is not a good port at all. And let's take a look at all those versions of MagMax running side by side.